Welcome back. All right, so I want to talk about parity, or the lack of it. The NHL has always talked up its parity, and how anybody can beat anybody on any given night in the NHL, which may be true on some level, but this year it feels less true. And it might be less true this year than at any time that I've watched hockey. There's always been really, really good teams and some pretty bad teams, but this year it just feels like it's a little different. And that parity is not there. And it's an 82 game schedule. Everybody's playing everybody. So we were supposed to see the numbers go back to a more normal standard, and we really haven't. So, in terms of points percentage, and I want to look at it from a points percentage perspective because that evens everything out. So, it doesn't matter if it's a shortened season. It doesn't matter if one year it's 82, one year it's 70, and then 56, that kind of thing. And it kind of illustrates just how much we've seen this huge separation. And then there's other indicators too. And then there's the bottom line in this part of the board as well. So Colorado currently leads the league in points percentage with 766. Despite losing against the Dallas Stars last night, the night before I'm recording this, they are far and away the best team when you look at it from a points percentage perspective. 766, and they're 8-1-1 in their last 10, right? Florida, 734 points percentage, 7-3 in their last 10. Carolina, 728 points percentage, 6-3-1 in their last 10. Minnesota, 716 points percentage, 8-1-1 in their last 10. Tampa, 714 points percentage, 7-2-1 in their last 10. Toronto, 707 points percentage, 7-3 in their last 10. Pittsburgh, 700 points percentage with their win last night. They're 6-1-3 in their last 10. And that's the thing. They're all at 700 or higher. There hasn't been a season that's happened, that we've seen this many teams with this gaudy of a record. So for me, when I do my power rankings on Saturday, I am well aware that there's a team with a 700 record who's going to have a fan base that's upset with where their team is standing. Because, again, if you just watch your team, you're like, we're winning all these games. But there's a lot of teams that are winning most of their games right now. And then there's the teams that are losing most of their games. So the Arizona Coyotes are doing their best to secure that number one draft pick with a 292 points percentage. They're 2-8 in their last 10. But Montreal, 240 points percentage, 0-8-2 in their last 10. It has been a nightmare season. And that's what you need if you're going to have all these teams with points percentages that are really high. You need bad teams at the same time. And this certainly seems to be the case. We're seeing more bad teams than normal. Teams with a 600 points percentage or higher who are not at 700 in the points percentage department. New York Rangers, Calgary, St. Louis, Washington, Boston, the Vegas Golden Knights, and Nashville. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 14 teams with a points percentage of higher than 600. That's insane. And that's why there are so many fan bases right now that are excited about the playoffs because they believe their team has a realistic shot at the Stanley Cup. And these percentages tell you that they do. If we look back over the most recent seasons, I only went back to 2016, 2017. I felt the point had been made at that point. But 2020, 2021, the season we just had, where I said there were teams with really gaudy records because you're only playing in your own division. So it's possible you could win 7 out of 8 against a team in your division and it skews your record. This year we don't have that, right? But Colorado last year, 732 points percentage, 8-2 in their last 10 games going into the playoffs. Vegas, 732 points percentage, 7-3 going into the playoffs. Colorado, they got the tiebreaker for the President's Trophy, and so they end up finishing first. Carolina, 714 points percentage, 5-2-3 record going into the playoffs. Florida, 705 points percentage, 8-2 going into the playoffs. So they were really hot going into the playoffs. Their points percentage is higher this year than last year. And there were some last year that said, well, they've probably overachieved, right? They've probably gone a little further than they should have with the wins. It'll get back to normal. Nope. Absolutely not. I stated that I thought these numbers were too high last year because you're only playing in your division. And once we even things out, the numbers should get back to normal. Carolinas have gone up. Colorado has gone up. Vegas has dropped, but Florida has gone up. So 3 of the 4 have gotten better. And Vegas is still above a 600 points percentage. The lowest last year was Buffalo, who had a 330 points percentage. They were 3-7 in their last 10. That was considered a miserable season, and yet it was way better than what Arizona and the Montreal Canadiens have gone through this year. And then you go back, and 2019-2020, your President's Trophy winners are Boston with a 714 points percentage, 7-3 over their last 10. The worst were the Detroit Red Wings, who had a 275 points percentage, 3-6-1 in their last 10 of the season. That 275 is much better than Montreal's. That 714 for Boston ties them with Tampa for 5th this season. So it really it shows that we're on a whole other planet. But 2018-2019, Tampa, 780 was their points percentage, 7-3 over their last 10 going into the playoffs. 390 was the worst. That was for Ottawa. They were 4-6 over their last 10. One thing with Tampa, notice, not 700, not 700. They win cups those years. They're 700 plus this year. They're not in the 780 region. But there's that argument of, so do teams that play this well during the season, do they kind of make it so it's tougher for them to amp up their game in the playoffs because they're already playing at full tilt all season? Or did they burn themselves out? And so for teams that might be lower seeds that maybe have some bumps along the way and they realize they're not unstoppable and they need to go out and work really hard every shift, does it favor those lower teams? And with so many teams that are 700 or higher, how is this going to affect things going into the playoffs? And which of these teams just flames out in the first round? Somebody will. Probably a couple of them at least. 2017-2018, your points percentage leader was Nashville with 713, so they'd be 6th this year. The lowest was Buffalo. Buffalo's back again. 378 points percentage. They were 2-8. So 2-8 over their last 10 before the season ended for them. 2016-2017, the Washington Capitals had a 719 points percentage, and that year they lose in the playoffs. And one of the storylines for me coming out of that was that Washington probably needed to take their time in the regular season, and maybe they went full tilt too much. Well, this full tilt team would be 4th in points percentage this year. We wouldn't be talking about Washington being full tilt and maybe burning themselves out. The worst was Colorado, 293 points percentage, 2-7-1 over their last 10 before the season was finished for them. It was a miserable season, still better than Arizona this year and better than Montreal this year. So if this Colorado team was playing right now, they would at the very least be 3rd from the bottom of the league. Now, if we look at the bottom of the league too, teams that are below 400 in their points percentage, and not Arizona or Montreal, you have New Jersey and Seattle that are both below 400. So that's what I'm talking about, where here you've got 378, 390 as the lowest, 330, but we have multiple teams this year. We have 4 that have a winning percentage, or points percentage, I should say, not winning percentage, points percentage below the 400 mark. So it does make a difference, right? And then the other problem is, and I'm saying this strictly from a point of view of trying to figure out who's playing the best out of these teams. These teams all don't meet each other a lot, right? So you're trying to grade how they're playing when they're playing against teams that in a lot of cases can be mediocre. And you can be playing a lot of mediocre teams in a row. And so, you know, we can talk about who plays the best against those mediocre teams, which I tried to do up a video on, I want to say 2 weeks ago, and it didn't work. I tried, and I was like, nah. I was gonna do a chart on who plays the best against the contending teams and who plays the best or the worst against the bottom teams, and it just became a muddled mess. Wasn't quite as clear as I like the boards to be. I don't mind a madness board, but there should be a clear message behind it. And if there isn't, then it doesn't make any sense. So that madness board got taken apart, and I said, yeah, I'll do this some other time when I figure another way to look at it. Now, goal differential is seen as a way to distinguish who is having a really good season and really winning games decisively. It's one thing we're seeing from Calgary right now that has got them getting closer and closer to this 700 club, right? So goal differential this year, and remember, this is just past the halfway mark. Colorado, a plus 56. Florida, a plus 55. Carolina, a plus 52. For them to be that good, teams have to be bad as well. Philadelphia is a minus 45. Arizona minus 72. Montreal's minus 85. They are on pace to pretty much annihilate the negatives from previous seasons. 2020-2021, 56-game schedule. Vegas is a plus 67. Very good season for them. Colorado a plus 64. Carolina a plus 33. So all three of them, the top three teams in the league. There you go. Colorado, Florida, Carolina, the top three teams in points percentage as well. So there is something to that goal differential telling you who's probably going to finish at the top. At the bottom of the goal differential, Columbus a minus 50, Anaheim a minus 53, Buffalo a minus 61. So Montreal's goal differential, Arizona's goal differential, already much worse than what Buffalo had last year over 56-game schedule. 2019-2020, a season where we saw some teams playing 70 games or 71 or 72. Boston ends up tops in goal differential at a plus 53. Tampa plus 50 and Colorado plus 46. That's why I'm wearing Colorado. They show up a lot on the positive side of things. On the negative side, San Jose a negative 44. Ottawa negative 52. Detroit negative 122. And it was a bad season, and that 275 points percentage, which is below Arizona's, yeah, that's legit. But that minus 122, I'm telling you, Montreal could annihilate it. Unless Marty St. Louis really tightens things up and their goaltending gets better, this is a team that could put up at a horrendous goal differential in Montreal. And I feel bad for St. Louis that this is his first job as coach. Okay, here you go. A team that's having a historically bad season, one of the worst seasons ever, and go. Although, there's no pressure when you commit to that situation because there's no expectation. So, 2018-2019, Tampa Bay, an incredible season. They end up plus 103, right? This is a full 82-game schedule where they have the 780 points percentage. Next on that goal differential chart is Calgary at plus 62. So Tampa and Calgary, fantastic, and they're out in the first round of the playoffs. Boston at plus 44. They were out in the second round of the playoffs. Yeah, it was the second round of the playoffs that year. That was the year they went to the final. I was thinking of when they lost to Tampa, so I was just, brain farting a little bit live and do it live. So, yeah, Boston plus 44. They get to the Stanley Cup final and lose against the St. Louis Blues, who, of course, neither of those teams were anywhere near this record. We'll talk about the Cup winners. On the negative side in 2018-2019, New Jersey a negative 53, Ottawa a negative 60, and LA a negative 61. So, again, the negative 61 here is better than the negative 61 here because this is only 56 games. This is 82. So LA, as bad as that season may have been for them, not historically bad. 2017-2018, Tampa Bay a plus 60 leads in the goal differential department there. Winnipeg a plus 59. Nashville a plus 56. And Winnipeg and Nashville, of course, very close to one another in the standings. Winnipeg did not have a 700 points percentage, but they were darn close. They had a 685 is what they had that year, something like that. Anyways, on the negative side, Montreal a negative 55, so they've been in the negatives before. Ottawa, negative 70, and Buffalo, negative 81. So again, a negative 81 is bad. The negative 122 for Detroit is abysmal. Montreal looking to blow both those numbers right out of the water. Montreal's already ahead of Buffalo, if you want to view it that way, with the negative 85 to Buffalo's negative 81. 2016-2017, Washington a plus 81. So again, it matches up that they are the President's Trophy winners and they have one of the best goal differentials. Plus 58 for Minnesota, plus 54 for Columbus. On the negative side, Vancouver a negative 61. Don't worry, they tinkered in the offseason because they felt they were close. Arizona a minus 63 and Colorado a minus 112. So again, that really, really awful season for the Colorado Avalanche. It's been pretty good since then, but that was a bad year. Now, if we look at Cup winners, so really, when you get into the weeds of all this, and this is great to look at and it's fun, but what about Cup winners? What kind of points percentage do they normally put up during the regular season? Tampa Bay, not usually 700. Last season, they had a 670 points percentage, so they were third in their division, and they still came through in the playoffs. The previous year, they had a 657 points percentage. So their points percentage went from 780 to 657. The 780 team got swept in the first round by Columbus. The following season at 657, they won the Stanley Cup. In 2019, St. Louis Blues, 619 points percentage for the record. St. Louis right now, their points percentage, 649, well above that 619. Washington was a 656 in 2018. So much like Tampa goes from 780 to 657 and wins the Cup. Washington, 719 to 656, they win the Cup. Vegas, from 732 into the 600s, and go ahead and populate that with whatever cursing you want if you want to. But it would tell you Vegas still has a pretty good shot at a Stanley Cup because it's happened before. Washington in 2018, I didn't give them a chance. A lot of people didn't give them that much of a chance, and then they go on and they win it, right? And that was after 2017 where they just it looked like they had choked and they're never going to get there, and then they did. 2017, the second year in a row that Pittsburgh wins the Stanley Cup, they had a 694 points percentage. That's as close to a 700 as you get. So the real takeaway from this for me is something simple. This year is different. I don't know that all of these teams end up finishing above 700. To me, that seems too high. But there are a lot of mediocre teams in the NHL right now. There are a lot of mediocre teams. Notice that you've got Montreal, Arizona, New Jersey, Seattle, all below 400. We're not even talking about Philly and how mediocre Philly's been. We're not getting into the other mediocre teams in this league who are near the bottom and how poorly they've played here and there. And so the separation is really, really large between those top halves and the bottom have-nots. And it feels like it started to really show up here, but we didn't pay as much attention because that was just divisional matchups. And now we're seeing a situation where parity, what's parity? We don't really seem to have it anymore. It'll show up in the playoffs because you've got that separation between the top and the bottom, which in the East has been ridiculous. In the West, it's been a little less ridiculous, but it's starting to look like there may be a little less tension in the West in, say, a month's time than we have now, where some of these teams are getting hot, like Calgary, like Edmonton. If they can continue to play well, if Dallas can, win 7 out of their next 10, we may be talking about the West the same. We may be looking at a deadline where you have 16 teams in the playoffs, and you have maybe 2 or 3 below the line that might have a shot, and everybody else could be sellers, which could make the parity problem worse. But no team with a 700 points percentage since 2017, and I was going back further, and it's hard to find a team with this kind of a record that ends up winning the Stanley Cup. But Chicago 2013 comes to mind just off the top of my head as one that had an incredible record. That's a lockout shortened season as well, which I don't think makes it easier, but you can definitely ride that momentum through a 48-game season and then go through the playoffs as well. And that was an argument in favor of the shorter season that some fans think would make it more entertaining. And sometimes the season can be a bit of a slog, that 82 games. But I guess the question I have is this a year that a team with a 700 points percentage ends up winning the Cup? Or since the sweet spot seems to be 619 and higher, are the Rangers, Calgary, St. Louis, Washington, Boston, Vegas, Nashville, are these teams that are not up here, are they likely to secure some upsets in the first round? And could we see a Stanley Cup winner who might be a surprise like St. Louis was in 2019 or Washington in 2018? And again, Washington, we look back now, we go, well, yeah, you got Ovechkin, you got this really good team, and Holtby was on top of his game, and sure, that worked out. But going into the playoffs, Grubauer was the starter, Washington had its issues, and then Grubauer was not great in the first 2 games against Columbus, and it looked like Washington was going to be out in the first round. And then they won the Stanley Cup. So it can be very unpredictable, but it does feel like parity is gone by the wayside. Does it come back next year? Question I have for viewers of this video, is what we're seeing this year now the new reality, that we're going to see teams have these kinds of gaudy records and other ones just sell off? And if so, the salary cap's been used to justify the whole, it's parity, got to have parity. If we don't have parity, then the salary cap is about your finances and making sure that teams are, making money and everything. But that's a whole other argument, is the financial side of it. Does it hurt teams to have them, so mediocre? Does it hurt attendance numbers? something we can talk about next season, very likely. Attendance being as it is this year and everything. But I wonder, is this the new reality for the NHL, that we're going to have some very good teams and some very bad teams? You might have some in the middle. It feels like the kind of thing you'd see in the NBA, sometimes Major League Baseball, sometimes in the NFL as well. And so it can come and go. So is this a one-off? Are we going to end, by the end of the season, do we see some of these teams pared down, and then we end up with maybe 4 teams that are still 700 and above, which is high? Or can all these teams maintain it? Do other teams join them at 700 or above? After the trade deadline, after teams have sold, their records could get worse. Where does this end? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Do we have parity in the NHL? Valid question, I think, at this point. The answer's not really, no. The numbers bear it out. We have some very good teams that have excellent records. We have some poor teams that have poor records. And that's where we're at. Let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.